I walked into my parents' extravagant home with butterflies in my stomach and arms laden with carefully wrapped presents. The familiar scent of cinnamon and pine greeted me as I stepped into the grand foyer decorated with garlands and twinkling lights. Despite my modest income, I had spent weeks selecting thoughtful gifts for each family member. Beneath the 12-foot Christmas tree, beautifully wrapped packages were stacked in colorful piles. During the gift exchange, I watched everyone's faces light up as they opened multiple presents. My sister Amanda gasped at her new designer purse. My brother Jason and his wife Sarah exclaimed over their luxury watch set. Even my teenage nieces and nephews tore through piles of gifts. When the flurry of unwrapping ended, I sat alone with empty hands. I awkwardly cleared my throat. Was there nothing for me? My mother Barbara looked up, her perfectly painted lips curving into a smirk. "Oh, we forgot you." The room fell into uncomfortable silence, followed by barely concealed snickers. The painful Christmas moment was just the latest chapter in a lifetime of feeling like the family disappointment. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant constant competition, with achievements flaunted like trophies and shortcomings publicly dissected at the dinner table. As the middle child between two high achievers, I had always struggled to find my place in the family hierarchy. My older sister Amanda had followed our father's path into medicine, becoming a surgeon at 30 and marrying Tyler, a hedge fund manager whose family had old money and older connections. My younger brother Jason had graduated top of his class from law school and now ran a thriving practice with his wife Sarah, who came from another prestigious family in our community. Both my siblings had picture-perfect marriages, beautiful homes in exclusive neighborhoods, and children who excelled at everything they touched. Then there was me, Violet Mitchell, the family wild card who had dared to veer off the prescribed path to success. 5 years ago, during my second year at the prestigious business school, my father had pulled strings to get me into. I made the decision that would become family legend. I dropped out to pursue my own business venture, an e-commerce platform I'd been building in my spare time. The family emergency meeting that followed still echoed in my nightmares. "You're throwing your life away on a ridiculous internet scheme," my father had shouted, his face turning the dangerous shade of red that always preceded his worst temper tantrums. "Do you have any idea what strings I pulled to get you into that program?" He paced our family room, the veins in his neck bulging. What am I supposed to tell the dean, who's a personal friend? My mother had taken a different approach, tears strategically welling in her eyes as she lamented. "Where did we go wrong with you, Violet? Amanda never gave us this kind of heartache. Even Jason knew better than to disappoint us like this." The final blow came when my father announced he was cutting me off financially. "When this little fantasy fails, don't come crawling back expecting help," he warned. "You've made your bed, now lie in it." I had left that night with nothing but my laptop, a small savings account, and a determination to prove them wrong. For 5 long years, I had limited contact with my family, seeing them only at obligatory holiday gatherings, where my little business hobby was either mocked or politely ignored. This Christmas dinner had filled me with dread for weeks. I knew exactly what would happen. They would judge my modest outfit purchased from one of my own vendors rather than a designer boutique. They would exchange knowing glances when I arrived in my practical 7-year-old sedan instead of the luxury vehicles they all drove. They would ask pointed questions designed to highlight my presumed failure. What they didn't know was that appearances could be deceiving. As we gathered in the formal living room before dinner, the family performance began right on cue. Amanda dominated the conversation, detailing her recent promotion and the exclusive private school her children had been accepted to. Jason talked about the high-profile case he had just won, and the vacation home he and Sarah were building in Aspen. My father beamed at them both, then pointedly looked at me. "It's nice to see real business people who understand how the world works," he said, his implication clear. "Speaking of success, I have a little surprise announcement." He stood up, commanding the room as he always did. "Barbara and I have decided to treat Amanda's and Jason's families to a 2-week luxury cruise to the Mediterranean next summer. all expenses paid, including extended shore excursions in Greece and Italy. The room erupted in excited chatter and grateful exclamations. No one seemed to notice, or perhaps they deliberately ignored, that I was the only adult family member excluded from this generous gift. The pointed omission stung worse than any direct insult could have. "Well," my mother said, standing to smooth her designer dress, "shall we move to the dining room? Cook has prepared a special feast." As everyone filed out, my father caught my eye and gave me a small, satisfied smile. The message was clear: this was just the beginning of tonight's humiliations. The Mitchell family Christmas dinner had always been an elaborate affair, but this year seemed especially ostentatious. The formal dining room gleamed with crystal and silver, the 20-foot table adorned with an extravagant centerpiece of white roses and gold-painted pine cones. Name cards in calligraphy designated each person's seat, and I noticed immediately that I had been placed at the far end of the table, away from the main conversation. "Violet," my mother called out as I hesitated. "You're down there, dear, between the children's table and Aunt Margaret." She smiled thinly. "We thought you might enjoy the livelier company." Aunt Margaret was 84 and profoundly hard of hearing. The children's table was actually a separate, small table where my youngest nieces and nephews Saturday. I was literally being seated between the oldest and youngest family members, symbolically excluded from the prime adult conversation. As servers brought out the first course, an elaborate seafood appetizer conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Amanda detailed her department's groundbreaking surgical procedure, while Jason discussed a case that had made regional news. Their spouses chimed in with their own professional triumphs, and even their older children were prompted to share academic achievements and extracurricular victories. I picked at my food in silence until my mother's voice cut through the chatter. "Violet, dear, how is that little internet thing of yours going? Still selling trinkets online?" Her tone was honey-sweet, but laced with poison. All eyes turned to me, and I cleared my throat. "Actually, my e-commerce platform has been doing really well this year. We've expanded into—" "Jason just won the Henderson case," my father interrupted, turning to my brother. "Tell everyone how you managed to sway that stubborn judge." I fell silent, pushing my food around the plate. A few minutes later, I tried again when Sarah asked what I'd been up to lately. "The business has really taken off," I began cautiously. "We've actually been featured in a couple of business publications, and—" "Did you see the feature on Amanda in Medical America?" my mother interrupted. "They called her technique revolutionary. We had it framed for her office, didn't we, dear?" This pattern continued throughout dinner. Every attempt I made to join the conversation was either interrupted, ignored, or received with polite disinterest before someone quickly changed the subject. I noticed other slights, too. When the main course arrived, a perfectly roasted prime rib, my mother hovered over the server's shoulder. "A little less for Violet," she murmured, not quite quietly enough. "She's always watching her figure." I was not in fact watching my figure, and had mentioned being hungry earlier. The serving placed on my plate was noticeably smaller than everyone else's. The side dishes followed the same pattern. When I reached for more roasted potatoes, my mother said loudly, "Violet, save some for others, please. You know how Tyler loves them." Tyler, who was engrossed in conversation with my father, hadn't even touched his first serving of potatoes. By the time dessert arrived, I felt completely deflated. The final insult came when the servers brought out individual cakes, each decorated with the recipient's name and a personalized design reflecting their interests or professions. There was a cake for everyone, except me. "Oh," my mother said with exaggerated surprise when I pointed out the oversight. "Cook must have miscounted." "You can share with the children, can't you?" I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment alone to compose myself. As I walked down the hallway, I heard voices from my father's study, the door slightly ajar. I slowed my steps, recognizing the voices of my parents and siblings. "Did you see her face when she saw the cruises didn't include her?" Amanda was saying, her laughter tinkling like ice in a glass. "Well, what were we supposed to do?" my father responded. take her charity case along to embarrass us in front of the Williamsons and Thompsons who are joining us. She'd show up with her discount store clothes and endless talk about her little internet project. I still can't believe she threw away that business school opportunity, Jason added. Father practically handed her a guaranteed six-figure career. She's always been the difficult one, my mother sighed. I think after dinner we should have that talk we discussed. The intervention. It's been 5 years of this nonsense. It's time she admitted failure and got a real job, like the rest of the family. I've got a position open for an office manager at my practice, Jason offered. It's not much, but it would be a start for her. Something respectable, at least. Perfect, my father said. After the gift exchange, we'll sit her down and make her see reason. I stood frozen in the hallway, my chest tight with pain and anger. They had planned an intervention. They were going to offer me charity after deliberately humiliating me all evening. 5 years of hard work, of sleepless nights, of building something from nothing, all dismissed as nonsense without them knowing any of the details. Taking a deep breath, I straightened my shoulders and walked back to join the family gathering. They had no idea what was coming next. After dinner, the family migrated to the vast living room where the enormous Christmas tree dominated the space. Thousands of tiny white lights reflected off glass ornaments and gold ribbons, creating a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the cold atmosphere I felt around me. Beneath the tree, the remaining presents waited to be distributed, the ones too special to be opened before dinner, according to my mother's carefully orchestrated Christmas choreography. Everyone find a seat, my father announced, positioning himself next to the tree like a game show host about to award prizes. Barbara and I have some special gifts we've been saving. The excitement was palpable as everyone found their places. Amanda and Tyler settled into the leather love seat, their children perched eagerly on the floor in front of them. Jason and Sarah took the matching armchairs while their children claimed spots on plush cushions. I found myself relegated to the hard piano bench at the periphery of the group. My father began distributing packages with theatrical flair. For Amanda and Tyler, he announced, handing them a small envelope. They opened it and gasped appropriately. Tickets to the Metropolitan Opera's exclusive New Year gala, Amanda exclaimed, exchanging a delighted look with her husband. And backstage passes to meet the soprano. For Jason and Sarah, my father continued presenting another envelope. Their gift was revealed to be season tickets to the Patriots in a private box, something Jason had apparently been hinting about for months. The gift-giving continued as my parents unveiled increasingly extravagant presents: designer watches for the adults, the latest gaming systems for the teenagers, and custom American Girl dolls for the younger girls. My 16-year-old niece Brittany unwrapped the exact tablet model I had mentioned wanting last year when I explained my design work, a comment that had clearly been remembered and repurposed. Each recipient expressed elaborate gratitude, creating a chorus of, "You shouldn't have," and "This is too much," that my parents dismissed with magnanimous waves. I sat quietly, a knot forming in my stomach as I realized what was happening. There would be nothing for me. This was not an oversight, but a deliberate exclusion. As the last of the children's presents was unwrapped, a painful silence fell over the room. Several family members glanced at me, and then quickly away, discomfort evident on their faces. My youngest niece, 8-year-old Ashley, looked around in confusion. "Aunt Violet didn't get anything?" she asked innocently. The room tensed. My mother laughed lightly, the sound like fingernails on a chalkboard to my ears. "Oh, we forgot Violet," she exclaimed with exaggerated surprise, though her eyes remained cold and calculating. My father cleared his throat. "Well, we weren't really sure what someone in your position he would need," he said, emphasizing the word position, as if my career choice was a temporary affliction. "Maybe next year if you've figured your life out," Amanda added with a smirk, adjusting her new designer watch. "It's hard shopping for someone when you don't know if they'll still be playing entrepreneur or finally have a real job." The room filled with uncomfortable laughter. My face burned with humiliation as I felt every eye on me, waiting for the tears, waiting for me to break down or lash out reactions that would only confirm their view of me as emotionally unstable and professionally unaccomplished. I swallowed hard, fighting to maintain my composure. The intervention they had planned would follow soon, I knew. They would offer me their pity and their solutions to a problem they had invented. Then something unexpected happened. "I have a present for Aunt Violet," a small voice announced. Ashley stood up, her face serious and determined. She ran to her small backpack in the corner and pulled out a crudely wrapped package, the paper clearly reused from something else, and held together with too much tape. She approached me solemnly and held it out. "I made it myself," she said proudly. The room went silent as I carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside was a bracelet made of colored string and plastic beads, clearly a craft project from school. In the center dangled a small charm in the shape of a computer. "Because you do computer business stuff," Ashley explained, "and because you always remember my birthday and ask about my art projects when nobody else does." I felt tears spring to my eyes, not from the humiliation my family had intended, but from this genuine gesture of kindness from the youngest person in the room. "It's beautiful, Ashley," I said softly, slipping it onto my wrist. "Thank you for remembering me." I looked up to see my sister scowling at her daughter, clearly displeased by this disruption to their carefully planned humiliation. My mother's lips were pressed into a thin line and my father shifted uncomfortably. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. This was the moment they expected me to either slink away in shame or explode in anger. Either reaction would confirm their narrative about me. The unsuccessful daughter who couldn't control her emotions, who had made poor life choices, who needed their guidance to get back on track. But I had a different script in mind. I smiled warmly at Ashley as I adjusted her handmade bracelet on my wrist, genuinely touched by her kindness. Then I turned to face my family, my expression calm and composed, despite the storm of emotions inside me. "It's okay that you didn't get me anything," I said, my voice steady. "I understand. Look what I got myself this year." I reached for my practical leather purse, not designer, but well-made and functional, and pulled out my phone. With a few taps, I opened a specific web page and handed it to my father. "You might find this interesting," I said simply. My father's brows furrowed as he looked at the screen, confusion evident on his face. Then his expression changed, eyes widening slightly as he read whatever was on the display. Without a word, he passed the phone to my mother, whose perfectly maintained composure slipped noticeably. "What is it?" Amanda demanded, impatient to be included. "What's going on?" "It's an article from the Wall Street Journal," my mother said, her voice uncharacteristically faint. "About Violet." "About my company, actually," I corrected gently. "Nexus Commerce. The little internet thing I've been working on for the past 5 years. Jason reached for the phone next, and I watched as he scrolled through the article, his lawyer's eyes scanning every detail. "This says your company was valued at $42 million in the latest funding round," he said, looking up at me with disbelief. "That can't be right." "It is," I confirmed. "We closed the Series B funding last month." The article is a bit sensationalized. They're calling me one of the stealth entrepreneurs to watch in the coming year. Personally, I think they're overstating things, but the numbers are accurate. The room had fallen completely silent. Every eye was fixed on me with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to the beginnings of reassessment. "But your car?" my mother began weakly. "Your clothes?" I shrugged. "I drive a practical car because it's reliable and paid off. I wear clothes from small business owners because I believe in supporting independent designers, many of whom sell through my platform. I don't flaunt my success because I don't measure my worth by material possessions or others' perceptions." 42 million, Tyler repeated, the hedge fund manager in him, clearly doing calculations. "So your personal stake would be worth..." I retained 53% ownership. Through both funding rounds, I supplied matter-of-factly. "So my equity stake is currently valued at just over 22 million, on paper at least." The shock in the room was palpable. My brother Jason, ever the pragmatist, seemed to be the first to recover. "But you never said anything," he accused. "All these years, you let us believe. Let you believe what you wanted to believe," I finished for him. "You all made assumptions based on what you could see, which wasn't much because none of you ever really asked about my business with genuine interest. You dismissed it as a hobby or a scheme without ever taking the time to understand what I was building. I turned to my father, whose face had drained of color. Remember when you said I'd come crawling back within 6 months? It's been 5 years. I never asked for help, never borrowed money, never complained about the struggles. And there were many, believe me. I lived in a studio apartment with a leaking roof for the first 2 years, while reinvesting every penny back into the business. But why keep it secret, my mother demanded, her voice regaining some of its usual sharpness. Why let us worry about you? I couldn't help the small, incredulous laugh that escaped me. Worry about me? You weren't worried about me, Mother. You were worried about how my perceived failure reflected on you. There's a difference. I stood up, smoothing the skirt of my simple but elegant dress. I didn't come here tonight expecting to have this conversation. I actually planned to share my news as a Christmas surprise, hoping maybe it would finally earn me some respect in this family. But after tonight's performance, the seating arrangement at dinner, the interruptions, the cruise announcement, the gift exclusion, and the intervention you were planning, I realized that your respect isn't something I need anymore. My father's head jerked up at the mention of the intervention. How did you know about that? I overheard you in your study, I admitted. And it confirmed what I've known for a long time, that nothing I do will ever be enough unless it fits your narrow definition of success. I returned to my purse and pulled out a leather portfolio. Since we're exchanging gifts, I do have something to share with all of you. It might interest you, Dad, particularly since it concerns Mitchell Properties. My father's company, Mitchell Properties, was his pride and joy, a commercial real estate firm he had built from the ground up 30 years ago. It was respected in the community, though in recent years I had heard rumors of financial struggles as newer, more tech-savvy competitors entered the market. What about my company? He asked sharply. You remember the Westbrook building downtown, the one housing your main offices and several other businesses. I opened the portfolio and removed a document. There was a quiet sale last month. The previous owner was facing bankruptcy and needed to liquidate quickly. I handed him the document, a deed of ownership with my name clearly listed as the new owner of the property. You bought my building? He asked incredulously. How dare you go behind my back? I didn't go behind your back. I corrected him. I made a business decision when the opportunity arose. The previous owner approached several potential buyers, including you, according to his records. You declined because of cash flow issues. My father's face flushed at this public acknowledgement of his company's financial difficulties, something he had apparently kept from the rest of the family, judging by their surprised expressions. Don't worry, I continued calmly. I have no intention of making changes to your lease agreement. In fact, I acquired the building specifically to protect your company's location. I knew a less sympathetic buyer might raise rents significantly, or redevelop the property entirely. My father stared at me speechless. For perhaps the first time in my memory, I could see him struggling to reconcile his image of his failure daughter with the businesswoman standing before him, a woman who now effectively owned the roof over his company's head. How did you know about Dad's financial problems? Jason asked, his lawyer's mind clearly connecting dots. Due diligence, I replied simply. Before purchasing the building, I researched all existing tenants thoroughly. What I found concerned me. Dad's company has been struggling for the past 3 years, losing market share to more technologically advanced competitors, dealing with several discrimination lawsuits from former employees, and facing cash flow issues due to overexpansion in 2018. I turned back to my father. I know you remortgaged your vacation home to make payroll last quarter. I know you've been deferring maintenance on properties. I know you've been cutting corners on employee benefits to save costs. The room was deathly quiet now. My mother looked horrified while my siblings appeared stunned. My father's business troubles had clearly been his closely guarded secret. You had no right to pry into my affairs. He finally managed, his voice shaking with anger. I had every right as a potential landlord, I countered evenly. And unlike you, when I discovered a family member in trouble, my first instinct wasn't to humiliate them or stage an intervention. It was to find a way to help while preserving their dignity. I closed the portfolio and set it on the coffee table. The truth is, Dad, your business model is outdated. You've resisted digital transformation while your competitors have embraced it. You've maintained the same practices that worked 30 years ago without adapting to changing market conditions. The irony is that the very expertise you dismissed as a little internet hobby could have helped you navigate these challenges. My father's shoulders sagged slightly, the first sign of vulnerability I had ever seen him display. For a moment I glimpsed the scared man behind the authoritarian facade, a man watching his life's work crumble while pretending everything was fine. I felt no satisfaction in his distress, only a profound sadness for the wasted years when we could have supported each other instead of maintaining this toxic, competitive dynamic. I didn't reveal this to hurt you or to get revenge, I said more gently. I revealed it because I'm tired of the pretense. I'm tired of all of us pretending to be something we're not. You're not financially secure, Dad. I'm not a failure, and this family isn't healthy. I looked around the room at the shocked faces of my relatives. Now that the truth is out, maybe we can start being honest with each other. Maybe we can build something better than what we've had. The silence that followed my revelation seemed to stretch for an eternity. I stood in the center of the lavishly decorated living room, feeling strangely calm, despite the emotional hurricane I had just unleashed. It was my father who finally broke the silence, his face ashen, but quickly regaining color as anger replaced shock. "This is how you repay our sacrifice," he demanded, rising to his feet. "By humiliating me in front of the entire family? By digging up private business matters and parading them like gossip? That's not what I'm doing," I replied evenly. "I'm simply bringing truth to a family that has survived on appearances and pretense for as long as I can remember." My mother rushed to recover her social instincts kicking in as she attempted damage control. "Violet, darling," she said with a brittle smile, "we've always believed in you. You're misconstruing our concern as criticism. We've only wanted what's best for you." The naked insincerity in her voice after years of dismissal and tonight's deliberate humiliations made me shake my head in disbelief. "Really, Mom? Is that why you forgot my Christmas present? Is that why you seated me at the far end of the table away from the adults? Is that why you've interrupted me every time I've tried to talk about my business for the past 5 years?" My mother's smile faltered. She glanced at my father for support, but he was still processing the revelation about his business vulnerability. Amanda stepped forward, her surgeon's confidence on full display. "This is ridiculous," she declared. "You expect us to believe you've built some multi-million-dollar company in secret. Where's the proof? Besides some article that could say anything, for all we know you paid to have it published." "The Wall Street Journal doesn't accept payments for features," I pointed out. "But if you need more evidence, you can look up the SEC filings for Nexus Commerce's funding rounds, or check the company's office in the Riverfront Tower downtown. We occupy 3 floors now. Or speak to any of our 50 employees or our clients, which include several Fortune 500 companies." Amanda's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing. "So you've had some business success. That doesn't excuse your behavior tonight. Coming here to gloat and throw Dad's problems in his face is cruel and vindictive. That's not what happened, and you know it," I said firmly. "I came here hoping for a normal family Christmas. I brought gifts for everyone. I tried repeatedly to engage in conversation and share my news appropriately. I was systematically excluded, belittled, and finally completely overlooked during the family gift exchange. I didn't plan to reveal Dad's financial struggles, but I'm not going to continue pretending when the truth is relevant." Jason, who had been quietly observing the unfolding drama, finally spoke. "I think we need to take a step back here," he said, his lawyer's training evident in his measured tone. "Clearly there have been misunderstandings on all sides." He turned to me, studying my face with new eyes. "Violet, I'll admit I'm shocked by what you've revealed. Not just about your business success, but about Dad's company too. Why keep your success a secret from us for so long?" It was a fair question asked without the hostility that had characterized most of our interactions. At first, it was because I needed to prove to myself that I could do it without family connections or support, I explained. After Dad cut me off, I was determined to succeed on my own terms. Later, when the business started growing, I realized none of you were actually interested. You'd ask cursory questions about my little project, but interrupt before I could really answer. Eventually, I stopped trying. We could have helped you, my father interjected, finding his voice again. If you'd been open about what you were building, like you were open about your business problems, I countered. This family doesn't do vulnerability, Dad. You taught us that. Mitchells succeed, or they keep quiet. When was the last time any of us admitted to struggling with anything? My father fell silent, unable to dispute the toxic family dynamic he had created and maintained. Sarah Jason's wife cleared her throat. I think what Violet is trying to say is that she felt she couldn't share her journey with us because our family culture doesn't make space for uncertainty or setbacks. Is that right? I nodded, grateful for her perceptiveness. Exactly. In this family, you either present finished, polished success, or you don't speak at all. I couldn't share the early struggles, the near bankruptcies, the times I nearly gave up because in the Mitchell family that's not allowed. And by the time I achieved the kind of success you might respect, the pattern of dismissal was so established that I didn't see the point in trying to break it. So tonight was what Revenge Tyler asked, his arm protectively around Amanda's shoulders. No, I said firmly. Tonight was supposed to be me finally sharing my good news with my family. I brought gifts for everyone. I came prepared to rebuild bridges. But after being deliberately excluded from the cruise announcement, seated away from everyone at dinner, interrupted constantly, and then completely forgotten during the gift exchange, I realized nothing has changed. The only difference is that now I don't need your approval anymore. My father, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly straightened up. The vulnerable moment had passed, and his familiar mask of authority returned. Let's be clear about something, he said, his voice regaining its edge. Running an internet business is not the same as building a real company with physical assets and community standing. Whatever success you've had, I suspect it's come from cutting corners and following internet trends rather than creating real, lasting value. It was a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, to diminish my accomplishments by questioning their legitimacy. 5 years ago, such a statement would have devastated me. Now it simply revealed how little he understood about the modern business landscape. That's an interesting perspective, I replied calmly, especially considering that your refusal to embrace digital transformation is exactly what's put Mitchell Properties in its current precarious position. My father's face flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. My company has temporary cash flow issues, nothing more. Every business goes through cycles. Dad, I said gently, this isn't a temporary issue. Your company has fundamental structural problems. You're losing clients to competitors with better digital platforms. Your property management software is a decade out of date. Your marketing strategy relies almost exclusively on methods that younger property seekers don't even engage with. I paused, then added, and that's not even addressing the 3 discrimination lawsuits from former employees that you settled quietly last year, or the OSHA violations at your West Side properties. My father went pale. How could you possibly know about the settlements? Those were confidential. As I said, I did my due diligence before purchasing the building. Public records show a lot, and I have connections in the industry now. The settlements may be confidential, but the fact that they existed is not. My mother gasped. Robert, you said those lawsuits were just disgruntled employees making trouble. You said they were dismissed. My father avoided her gaze, another crack appearing in the perfect family image. The point is, I continued, I know about your business practices in detail, Dad. I know about the corners you've cut. I know about the ethical lines you've crossed. And despite knowing all that, I still chose to buy that building to protect your company rather than expose you or leave you vulnerable to a less sympathetic buyer. I met his eyes directly. That's the difference between us. When you discovered I was struggling, you cut me off and hoped I would fail so you could be proven right. When I discovered you were struggling, I stepped in quietly to help, without demanding acknowledgement or gratitude. The room fell silent, as the weight of this comparison settled over everyone. My father looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "Is that true?" Dad Jason asked quietly. "Did you really settle discrimination lawsuits? Are there really OSHA violations?" My father's lack of response was answer enough. Jason exchanged a troubled look with Sarah. As an attorney, he understood the seriousness of these issues better than anyone. "Look," I said, softening my tone, "I didn't come here tonight to expose anyone's secrets or tear the family apart. I genuinely wanted to celebrate Christmas together and share my good news. But I can't keep participating in this family dynamic where appearances matter more than reality, where success is defined so narrowly, and where we tear each other down instead of building each other up." I looked around at the stunned faces of my family members. We have a choice now. We can continue as we have been, pretending everything is perfect when it's not. Or we can try something new. We can be honest with each other. We can acknowledge our failures and celebrate our successes, all of them, not just the ones that fit some predefined mold. My niece Ashley, who had been watching the adult drama unfold with wide eyes, suddenly spoke up. "I think Aunt Violet is right," she said with the straightforward clarity of a child. "Lying makes everything worse. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say." Her simple statement seemed to cut through the tension, and I saw several small, reluctant smiles appear. "Well," I said, reaching once more for my purse, "since honesty seems to be the theme of the evening, I should probably tell you that I did bring gifts for everyone after all." I opened my purse and pulled out a stack of envelopes, each bearing a name written in my careful handwriting. The room remained silent as I held them, every eye fixed on this unexpected development. "Despite everything, you're still my family," I said quietly. "And contrary to what you might think, I didn't come here tonight seeking revenge. I came hoping for reconciliation." I approached my father, first holding out an envelope with his name. He hesitated before taking it, wariness evident in his expression. "What is this?" he asked suspiciously. "Open it and see," I replied. With reluctant fingers, he broke the seal and removed several documents. As he scanned the contents, his brow furrowed in confusion. "I don't understand," he said finally. "These are consulting contracts." "Yes," I confirmed. "From 3 of the top digital transformation specialists in the commercial real estate industry. I've prepaid for their services for the next 6 months. They'll help modernize Mitchell Properties operations, upgrade your property management systems, and develop a digital marketing strategy that will actually reach younger clients." He looked up at me, clearly struggling to process this unexpected gift. "Additionally, I continued, the second document outlines the terms for a business loan from my company to yours. $2 million at 2% interest, significantly below market rate, with flexible repayment terms. Enough to address your immediate cash flow issues and fund the necessary upgrades without forcing you to take on predatory private equity investment." "You're offering to bail out my company?" he asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and wounded pride. "I'm offering to invest in a business that has potential but needs modernization," I corrected gently. "I'm also offering you a chance to protect your legacy on fair terms. The alternative is watching your company continue its decline until you're forced to sell or declare bankruptcy." My father stared at the documents, momentarily speechless. I turned to my mother next and handed her an envelope. "For you, Mom," I said. She opened it with trembling fingers and pulled out a business plan complete with financial projections and architectural renderings. "A bakery?" she questioned, looking up at me in confusion. "You always wanted to open your own bakery," I reminded her. "You used to talk about it when we were kids before you decided it wasn't practical enough." Her eyes widened in surprise that I had remembered this long-abandoned dream. The envelope contains a complete business plan for a high-end bakery and cafe in the Riverfront district. There's seed funding for the first year of operations, connection to suppliers, and a marketing strategy. I've also included contact information for a business mentor who specializes in helping new food service entrepreneurs. "But I haven't baked professionally in decades," she protested weakly. "You don't have to do the baking yourself if you don't want to," I explained. "You can be the owner and creative director, hiring professional bakers to execute your vision." The point is to give you something that's yours alone, not just an extension of Dad's business or identity. My mother's perfectly manicured hand trembled slightly as she traced the artist's rendering of a stylish storefront with Barbara's patisserie elegantly written across the awning. I always did love baking, she murmured, almost to herself. I moved on to Amanda and Tyler, handing them their envelope. Investment options, I explained as they reviewed the contents. Nexus Commerce is preparing for another funding round next year. These documents outline early investment opportunities at preferred rates with projected returns over the next 5 years. There's also information about our angel investment network for medical technology startups, which I thought might interest you both professionally. Amanda studied the financial projections with narrowed eyes, her initial hostility giving way to cautious interest as she recognized the potential returns. Tyler, the finance expert, was already running calculations in his head, his expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. For Jason and Sarah, I had prepared something different. Legal partnership opportunities, I said as they opened their envelope. Nexus Commerce is expanding internationally next year. We need legal experts who understand both American and international business law. The documents outline a potential consulting arrangement that would allow you to maintain your current practice while adding our company to your client list. The terms are generous, and the work would give you exposure to the tech sector that might open new doors for your firm. Jason's eyes moved rapidly across the documents, his lawyer's mind assessing the offer. This is very comprehensive, he acknowledged. I do my research, I replied, with a small smile. Finally, I turned to the children, including Ashley, who had given me the bracelet. For each of them, I had prepared age-appropriate gifts. For my nieces and nephews, I announced handing each a personalized package, college fund contributions with additional bonuses tied to academic performance and community service. And for those of you interested in business or technology guaranteed internship opportunities at Nexus Commerce when you're older, I knelt down to Ashley's level, giving her special attention. And for you, Ashley, something extra. Since you're already showing an entrepreneurial spirit with your crafts, I've set up a special mentorship program. If you're interested, I'll help you set up a small online shop to sell your creations and teach you about business along the way. Her eyes widened with excitement. My own business. Like yours. Exactly like mine, just smaller to start. I confirmed, with a warm smile. Everyone has to begin somewhere. I straightened up and addressed the entire family. These gifts aren't just material things. They're opportunities for genuine reconnection, for building relationships based on mutual respect, rather than competition or obligation. The room was quiet, as everyone processed what had just happened. The gifts I had offered weren't trinkets or status symbols, but thoughtful, personalized opportunities that acknowledged each person's individual goals and challenges. They represented not just financial value, but something more precious: understanding and respect for who each family member truly was. Why would you do this? My father finally asked, breaking the silence. After how we've treated you, why offer help instead of walking away? It was a fair question, one I had asked myself many times while preparing these gifts. Because cutting ties might be easier, but it wouldn't bring healing, I said honestly. And because despite everything, I believe people can change when given the chance. I paused, then added, but let me be clear, these gifts come with boundaries. I'm offering reconnection, but on new terms. No more belittling, no more exclusion, no more pretending. If we're going to be a family, it has to be a healthy one. I looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. I'm hosting a New Year's celebration at my lake house next week. You're all invited if you're willing to start fresh. Not pretending the past didn't happen, but agreeing to build something better going forward. My father cleared his throat, visibly struggling with this shift in family dynamics. This lake house. Where is it? Silver Lake, I replied. I purchased it 3 months ago. It needs some renovation, but the location is beautiful. 6 acres, with private waterfront. Silver Lake properties are going for millions, Jason commented, unable to help himself. 4.2 million to be exact. I confirmed without embarrassment. Like I said, I've been doing well. My mother's social instincts finally kicked back in. Well, she said, attempting to recover some semblance of her hostess composure, this has certainly been an unexpected Christmas. That it has, I agreed with a small smile. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Sometimes the unexpected is exactly what we need. I glanced at my watch. It's getting late, and I should be going. I have an early conference call tomorrow with our European partners. I gathered my purse and coat. Think about my invitation for New Year's. It's a genuine offer, but only if you're ready for a new kind of family relationship. As I prepared to leave, Ashley ran up and hugged me impulsively. I want to come to your lake house. Can I really learn to make a business? I hugged her back, touched by her enthusiasm. Absolutely. We can start as soon as you like. One by one, family members approached to say awkward goodbyes. There was a new uncertainty in their manner. The familiar family script disrupted beyond repair. Jason and Sarah seemed the most genuine, with Jason quietly saying, I'd like to hear more about your company sometime. My parents walked me to the door, maintaining appearances to the end. You've given us a lot to think about, my father said stiffly. That was my hope, I replied. Merry Christmas, Dad. Mom, I hope to see you at New Year's. As I walked to my practical paid-off car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Whatever happened next, I had finally spoken my truth. The pretense was over, and with it, the power this family had held over my sense of self-worth. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, I felt hopeful about the possibility of genuine family connections based on who we really were, not who we pretended to be. 6 months after that fateful Christmas night, I stood on the deck of my lake house watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. So much had changed in such a relatively short time, not just in my family's dynamics, but in my own understanding of forgiveness boundaries and genuine success. My company, Nexus Commerce, had continued to thrive. Our international expansion was proceeding ahead of schedule, with new offices opening in London and Singapore. Our user base had grown by 62%, and we were being courted by major retail partners seeking to modernize their e-commerce capabilities. The business journey that had begun in a tiny apartment with nothing but determination and a laptop had evolved beyond my wildest dreams. But the professional success, gratifying as it was, paled in comparison to the personal transformations I had witnessed in my family. My father had been the most surprising. After initially resisting my help out of pride, a near-catastrophic cash flow crisis in February had finally pushed him to accept the loan and consulting services I had offered. The digital transformation of Mitchell Properties was now well underway, with a modern property management system implemented and a complete overhaul of their marketing approach. The company had stabilized and was showing signs of potential growth for the first time in years. More importantly, my father had begun the difficult process of confronting his own toxic leadership style. The discrimination lawsuits had been a wake-up call he couldn't ignore once they were brought to light. With some gentle but firm encouragement from me, he had hired a corporate culture consultant and instituted new policies to address the systemic issues in his company. Our personal relationship remained a work in progress, full of awkward pauses and old habits that died hard. But there were moments of genuine connection too, like when he called to ask my advice about a digital marketing strategy, actually listening to my response without interruption. Small steps, but significant ones, for a man who had never admitted to needing help with anything. My mother had perhaps undergone the most dramatic transformation. After decades of existing primarily as my father's wife and social coordinator, she had embraced the bakery concept with unexpected enthusiasm. Barbara's Patisserie had opened its doors in April, a charming cafe that quickly gained a following for its exquisite pastries and warm atmosphere. I had worried that she might treat the business as a hobby, but she had surprised everyone by approaching it with serious dedication. She had enrolled in business classes at the community college and spent hours perfecting recipes and sourcing ingredients. The bakery had become her domain, a space where she made decisions without deferring to my father's judgment. I should have done this 30 years ago, she had confided to me over coffee one morning at the bakery. I always thought being a proper wife meant supporting your husband's dreams, not pursuing your own. It's never too late to change, I had responded, and meant it. My siblings had followed their own paths toward reconciliation. Jason had been the first to reach out after Christmas, calling me in early January to accept my New Year's invitation and to apologize for his role in the family's treatment of me. I never stopped to question the dynamic he had admitted. It was easier to go along with Mom and Dad's narrative about you than to challenge it. His legal firm had indeed taken on Nexus Commerce as a client, and through our professional interactions, we had begun rebuilding a personal relationship as well. We now met monthly for lunch, gradually getting to know each other as adults, rather than as competitors in our parents' approval game. Amanda had been the slowest to come around her pride, making it difficult to acknowledge how wrongly she had judged me. But even she had eventually taken tentative steps toward reconciliation, particularly after Tyler had enthusiastically invested in Nexus Commerce's latest funding round and seen impressive early returns. Your business model is actually quite innovative, she had grudgingly admitted during a family dinner in March. Coming from Amanda, this qualified as effusive praise. The family dynamics as a whole had shifted in profound ways. The competitive atmosphere that had poisoned our interactions for decades had given way to something healthier, not perfect by any means, but marked by growing respect and authenticity. Family gatherings were no longer performances of perfection but opportunities for genuine connection, complete with occasional disagreements that we were learning to navigate without resorting to cruelty or manipulation. My father had even begun seeing a therapist, a development that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The man's helping me understand some things about my parenting, he had gruffly explained when I noticed a self-help book on his desk. Apparently, I've been carrying forward some patterns from my own father. The most rewarding relationship of all had been with young Ashley. True to my word, I had helped her set up a small online shop, selling her handcrafted jewelry and art pieces. Ashley's creations had become a modest success, with orders coming in regularly, and wonderful reviews from customers charmed by both her craftsmanship and her age. Every Saturday morning, we had business meetings where I taught her basic entrepreneurial concepts in age-appropriate ways. Watching her excitement as she made her first sales and calculated her profits had been pure joy, a reminder of why I had fallen in love with business in the first place before family pressure and expectations had complicated everything. You're breaking the cycle, my therapist had observed when I shared these stories during one of our sessions. I had finally started therapy myself, recognizing that even as the wronged party in my family dynamic, I had my own healing to do. Breaking the cycle seemed an apt description for what was happening across generations in my family. The pattern of conditional love, harsh judgment, and status-based worth that had been passed down was finally being disrupted. It wouldn't be erased overnight. Such deep-rooted dynamics never are, but the pattern had been identified and challenged, which was the essential first step. As for my personal life, that too had seen positive changes. 3 months after Christmas, I had met Daniel at a business conference where we were both speakers. He was the founder of an educational technology company and understood the entrepreneurial journey intimately. Our relationship had developed naturally, without the pressure or pretense I had experienced in previous relationships, where I had tried to hide either my ambitions or my success to make partners comfortable. With Daniel, I could be fully myself, successful but still learning, strong but occasionally vulnerable, confident but not perfect. It was too early to know where our relationship might lead, but it felt healthy and balanced in a way I had never experienced before. The sound of car tires on gravel interrupted my sunset reverie. Looking down from the deck, I saw Ashley hopping out of my parents' car, waving excitedly. Today was a special occasion, the first official family gathering at my lake house since the New Year's party, that had marked the beginning of our reconciliation journey. This time everyone was coming. My parents, Jason and Sarah, with their children. Even Amanda and Tyler had confirmed. We would barbecue on the deck, swim in the lake, and celebrate not just the summer holiday, but the new connections we were forming as a family. As I watched my parents unload food containers from the trunk, my mother had insisted on bringing desserts from her bakery. I reflected on the profound truth that had emerged from our family crisis. true success wasn't measured in money, status, or even professional achievement. It was found in the courage to be authentic, the wisdom to set healthy boundaries, and the grace to offer second chances where they were genuinely warranted. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been difficult conversations, painful recognitions, and moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. Building a healthy family dynamic after decades of dysfunction required ongoing commitment from everyone involved. But standing there, watching my family arrive with genuine smiles instead of polished social masks, I knew the effort was worthwhile. We weren't a perfect family, we never would be, but we were becoming a real one, connected by truth and mutual respect rather than obligation and pretense. Ashley spotted me on the deck and waved frantically. "Aunt Violet, I sold 15 bracelets this week. Can we do the accounting? After swimming." I laughed and waved back. "Absolutely, business meeting by the lake." As my family made their way up to the house, I felt a profound sense of peace. The empire I had built wasn't just my business impressive as it had become. The true empire was this: the ability to stand in my own truth without apology, to offer compassion without compromising my boundaries, and to help others find their authentic paths while honoring my own. That was the kind of success that couldn't be measured in dollar signs or Wall Street Journal articles. It was measured in relationships healed, cycles broken, and lives transformed, including, most importantly, my own. Have you ever experienced a moment where standing up for yourself changed your family dynamics? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more content about family relationships and personal growth, and share with someone who might need to hear this message of courage and reconciliation. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and wisdom in your own.